And welcome back. We're moving into our final segment for today, and we're going to be focusing on Women in Art 2016. Joining us for this conversation, we have curator for the exhibition, Gayla Lopez, an artist herself. And we also have writer, director, and employee of Niche as well, Kim Vasquez. Good morning and welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Now, each year around this time, how do you focus differently on women and their participation in art? And perhaps, Kim, we can start there with you.
I think because we really feel the need to participate in the activities that take place for Women's Month and to really highlight the work of female artists as, you know, as we said one year in Women in Art, as the ultimate creator. You know, women, we are natural creators. And this is our contribution to Women's Month, to the activities that take place during the month.
Yeah.
Gayla, when you come on board to actually curate an exhibition, one of the things that we had as a part of the conversation last year, for example, was what's appropriate in terms of art. Do you move in terms of having a definition that encompasses what can be art, especially art created by women?
Let me start out by saying that art is quite general, and it's what you see and what you feel, in my opinion. But when you're looking at women in art, we would go and come up with a theme. And so like this year, we arrived at uncannily apt, not a label, simply saying that as women, we are so much alike. And we go through the same things, even though we might think that we are not. And women have a style of labeling each other. And this theme this year was created because as a follow-up to a speech that I gave about, 2-3 years ago. And it's just to put that emphasis that women need to look out for one another more, and that we need to work together more to become, you know, united like a team. Because I'm no different from Marlene and I'm no different from Kim. Neither are they from me. So I came up with that theme just to put a little bit more emphasis into it and to show women, and the women that are going to be participating are artists. And this theme is quite general, so they get a break to express themselves any which way they choose, as long as it's not too explicit, because it's for the public and children are going to be at the show.
And I mean, we love your flyer, obviously,
Thank
talking
you.
about moving away from common labels that women are subjected to. That you said something there in the end, and I think that was part of the concern that had come up previously in terms of censorship, and whether or not in terms of selection there is a type of censorship taking place. How do you engage with the artists in terms of what they will contribute? And even you, Kim, as somebody who will participate, you have to keep your audience in mind, but also it's very hard to put limitations on creative expression.
Right.
You have to be respectful, right? What Gayla said is art is very general. For example, I am working with 2 very talented individuals, 3 of them actually. One is artist Jackie Castillo for the performance art segment. But I'm also working with 2 actresses. One of them is a 13-year-old from Palote, very talented. We've been working with her for a few years at ICA. And the other is the vice principal of Ladyville Technical High. And she's very involved in drama. And when she looked at my script, there was a word in there. It's up there. I won't say it because we're on television. And she said, I don't say that word. And immediately I respected that. And I swapped it out and we put something. And it works the same way and it's still as powerful. But I respected her as an artist. She says, I don't say that word. And I was okay with that.
So how do you deal with the artistic license that some people may feel is a necessary part to bring grit and realness to their expression, their artistic expression?
When there was a call for artists, and each individual, well, the team was given, but for me, there's not a lot of restrictions in terms of how you get to express yourself. For example, there is a photographer, a female photographer, and she wanted to do some nude pictures of a female for the show. And I said, well, it's okay, just don't let it be, like, don't, right. There shouldn't be a lot of nudity then, for example. You can leave some to the eye's imagination. And because of the audience that we're going to be having. So there's limited restrictions as such, not too many.
So it's not censorship, it's restriction.
Right, kind of. Yeah. I hate that word as well, sorry. Yeah, I really don't like that word.
Yeah.
As well,
as artists, it's hard for us to put limits on certain things, but at the same time, we look out for our audience.
And that's why I asked the question, because it's, and especially a theme like this, if you're talking about removing labels, that's a strong position. And it's not necessarily the nice things that we want people to stop calling us. It is the stuff that hurts at the core, the stuff that feels that it strips you of something, and that kind of message, that powerful message, won't come sugar-coated.
Right.
Yeah.
So in a way, it's almost kind of ironic.
Yeah.
And if anything, it only serves, I think, to highlight the limitations and restrictions we still face as artists. Yeah. Because sometimes you honestly ask, if it were a man saying these things and putting a rap song out there or a music video, would it be okay? But why do we feel, as a woman, we shouldn't say that, or that wouldn't be, that's too much, that's too extreme, And so it is a reality, and all we can do is to try to go as hard as we can against the limitations. And if we hit the barriers, maybe if we just keep hitting, maybe eventually we will break through.
Now, based on your response, you triggered something in my mind's eye, the entire idea that a lot of women's art is actually protest or response to what has been proliferated in the mainstream, especially when you're dealing with the majority of the artists being men. So whether it's daggering and lyrics of that sort from dance hall or rap or whichever genre of music, those are still some of the major things, because as I look there and I see things like Gold Digger and all of that, how do you have a art that is responsive, yet socially conscious and really pushing women in a positive direction, but at the same time be educational for men?
Good question.
Because we, a lot of words may be considered, it's just what is being said now, without the responsibility that comes from actually what it may mean to your daughter, etc.
Without thinking of the impact, it's just that's commonly thrown around.
I think a lot of it has to do with when you look at words and labels. It's how we have been socialized, how we've been reared. And because a lot of these words are really common words, it just comes, it just flows. And it's something that as individuals, in my opinion, that you really, you step back, you take a look at it, and for me, it is us who allows those words to get to us, because some words just fly by my ears. Like, I don't really pay attention to them in the context that they're told to you or that they're said to you. Your question is so wide, and there are lots of thoughts running through my mind how to answer that.
Well, I think one of the things you mentioned is key, and maybe if I could rephrase it, is it meant to educate or is it to express? And if you are educating, is it primarily to women or is it also inclusive of men? Yeah, go ahead. Both of you can give. Yeah. Let's start with you, Kim. I think you hit the buzzer first.
Because what William said really resonated with me, because it's what I was trying to do in my dramatic piece that I'm presenting, and that's why I chose to work with two actresses at different points in life. One is a teenager and one is older, because I think that's where it all starts at that age of 13, when you're balancing between girl and womanhood, where all of this sometimes starts and the damage really gets done. And so yes, it is to highlight, but it's also to educate, because it causes damage. Yes. And we as women, sometimes we ourselves don't really realize the damage that it's causing. And for me, I chose to bring that using pop art in the makeup.
Okay.
And so that the actresses look like comic book characters. Why? Because this labeling, it takes away the essence of who you really are. And you're no longer Gayla or Kim. You become one of those things. And you yourself might believe it. And you yourself might reinforce it until you no longer really know who you are. And so for me, that's really what I was trying to get at in my piece that I'm presenting.
And Kim covers it all because it's the same when I think all the artists, we get a chance, the visual artists, because that's what we're basically highlighting besides the performing arts, is that they get a chance to express themselves at the same time educating others. Because like for me, I would think twice about calling Kim something like this. So, or one of those labels, or calling another female, like you have to be conscious, you have to continuously think before you speak then, you know. And so it's very, what Kim said, I mean, it's just that it's educational, because then we all get a chance to step back and think about what we call somebody before, you know.
And like I said, some of these words, I mean, I think we use so commonly, and it's a cumulative effect. I think that's one of the things that you're saying there. It's we don't always call it damage, but it becomes a part of our thought process that we almost accept. Bossy is one that stands out for me. I talk about that all the time. You call girls bossy from their when they are leaders, you know, and most of the women in our society today who are leaders can identify with being called bossy, but not our men.
In fact, I would say many of our outstanding women in society are called by many of those labels up there.
Men aren't called bossy.
Right.
Men are called good leaders, you know, and I think growing up, I was blessed with a mother who said, you're a natural born leader, and it changed the thought process. But if girls are told you're bossy and that's bad, then they...
But there's an important thing that I think we need to, that I also wanted to look at, is that sometimes it's women who do this to other women.
Exactly.
It's not so, it's bad when men do it. But I think when Gayla brought this theme to me, and she said it was from a speech that she had done a couple years back at another Women in Art exhibit, and she said, you know, as women, we need to pull each other up and not tear each other down. And so we started to talk about some of the examples, and sometimes mothers do it to their daughters. You do it in a moment of anger or hurt, or because you yourself are projecting what you went through on your child. And so I think sometimes we don't really realize as women how we are labeled, but we also turn around and label other women.
Yeah. The impact we have on other women as well. And I think it's far,
our own cycle.
Exactly. It's worse, to me, it's worse when another female calls you these labels than, because for me, like I said, some words just blow by me, and you have to come to a stage. I mean, you were blessed to have a mom, like you said. I have a strong mom as well. But yourself consciously, you have to tell yourself consciously that you won't allow these words to affect you, because not only bossy, but you get called aggressive just for speaking up, and aggressive is a general wide term,
or the
you know.
regular word that everybody gets called, the one we can't see on TV, right? Yeah, which encompasses so much of the leadership skills that we see.
But then there's some other ones that you never really think of, but they haunt some people all their life. Fat, lazy, stupid, skittle, those things haunt you for life, and you can't, and it's a simple word, you know. Or you might never think how much a person struggles with their weight or their body image. Fat gal, maga gal, you know. You don't know
even
how
stupid.
Even stupid.
If you didn't perform well in school. So I love the idea of what you've done here, and I'm pretty sure since the exhibition opens the end of this week that you now know what's going to be showcased. What are you seeing from the artists? How much have they been able to deliver on the overall theme?
I'm actually overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Why? Because we have about 25 confirmed female artists, and there is a wide range in terms of age. And so for me, that response is like a plus, because we've had shows where you don't have as many pieces. And for me this year, because I think that this theme actually touched a lot of people, a lot of the female artists that we reached out to, and it wasn't hard explaining to them because they could relate. And because it's so wide and open, that the response has been really, really great. So I'm looking, I haven't seen the pieces as yet, to be honest.
Okay.
They're at the Bliss.
So now your work starts.
Yes, exactly. And so like today I'm going there and I'm going to be taking a look at those things, but I know that I won't be surprised.
Yeah.
I'm really looking forward to a great and powerful show because I think that, I mean, all of us get a chance to express ourselves, and it's a variety. It's not limited, like, you know, and so I'm really looking forward to something great.
And the performance portion?
The performance portion is meant to complement and highlight the curator's theme. I mean, for me, I'm overwhelmed with excitement because I get to take off the program officer hat and do the artistic thing.
I think the artist you are,
yes. And you know, sometimes you work in the arts, you work with the arts, but you don't get to do the art, exactly. Right? And so, you know, I cherish moments like this. I'm excited. As I said, my piece is entitled Unlabeled. It features the music of Jackie Castillo, but it has two dramatic performances, one by a student, Rochelle Babb, and the other by Vice Principal of Ladyville Tech, Miss Ardette Rodon.
Now, I want to pull back to one thing. I know because it's just milling in my mind. The whole idea, because we've had several conversations right here and focusing on street harassment, for example. And Gayla said, you know, the whole idea of ignoring certain things. And I said in a previous show, I had a conversation with some fathers, young fathers, who were talking about how intimidated their daughters were by the approaches and advances and slurs from grown men, and how upset they were as fathers. You know, very casual conversation, but you could tell how men, when they have to protect daughters, suddenly understand the gravity of those words. And I guess that kind of framed my earlier question, because men don't get a chance to see the impact of those words. You know, whether it's just hissing at a woman or saying something kind of sexual in nature while they're traversing the streets. People see it like, well, you know, it's not, I'm paying her a compliment, you know, a kind of thing. So just for your reaction, I'm not going anywhere in particular with that comment, but just to get your response to that, especially when Marlene continuously says, you know, you're encouraged to ignore it. But how do you deal with it?
I, for one, never ignore it. You hit a nerve because I get enraged and I just unleash. It's one of the things, even as a teenager, I hated it, and I still do. And I do.
It's a violation.
And I do not tolerate it. And I find that I remember when I first started to work at Niche, there was an individual that worked nearby as a security. And every morning, no matter how many times I ignored it, he persisted. And one day I let him have it. And he never did it again. And I'm not saying that women should do that, because that could put you in a dangerous situation. But I felt empowered to do that, right? And I wasn't, you know, soft about it or anything. I was very stern. I said, you know, I work here and I'm not going to tolerate this every single day for the rest of my life. I'm not going to put up with this, right? And I've done it in the past where if I see it's a person, like, for example, in a uniform, I've gone to the extent of saying, well, I will report you, right? Because I find that you're wearing a uniform or something and what you're saying to me is inappropriate.
I said that no, at this point in time in my life, because I have grown, I have allowed some of the words to fly by me. I mean, growing up and when you were younger, of course, all of us have experiences as women with certain labels, and some more than others. And at that, I mean, when you're younger or when you're just learning, then you're in the process of maturing and stuff like that, sometimes you would react, sometimes you would just let it slide. In terms of what you're asking about, little girls or young women walking on the streets and men, like for me, I have 2 daughters. And I would just tell my daughters, just keep your head high and walk by. Because sometimes when you pay attention to it, you allow more things to happen. And some people are not, I don't want to use the word that I'm not strong enough, but sometimes you just can't ignore it. And so you would have a reaction like she's saying, she had a reaction. For me, I don't pay attention to those things anymore. You can talk your head off, call me whatever, because I know who I am. And I think that's the most important thing that you need to teach. We all need to teach our girls that they're individuals, that they can express themselves. It just goes back to morals and principles. It's how you're reared inside your home, how you come out, and just giving that boost, that positive boost. Like I try to put a lot of positivity into my kids and tell them, don't feel labeled by society, because society owes you nada, nothing. And that's simply to say, because as an individual, you have to grow. And if we continue to hold on to, oh, then they call me bossy, or then they tell me I'm aggressive, or if you know you're not like that, then there's no truth to it. Why hold on to it? That's where I have reached. So for me, I try to teach my girls things like that, let them learn and grow to know themselves as individuals, so that when anybody would shoot one of those words at them, it doesn't affect them. It's just how we educate one another.
The positive information has to be reinforced.
Exactly.
But I think ultimately, one of the things that we see is, yes, parents have a huge responsibility. And where the parents aren't able to provide these support systems, we as a wider community need to change. And I think, you know, even when it comes to street harassment, this is something we're very adamant about. While I was taught to ignore it too. And I think it's more a maternal safety issue. You know, your mother doesn't want you to put yourself in a situation where you can be harmed, or perhaps told even worse things. It's not necessarily what we should be encouraging women to do, that when somebody violates you, you ignore it for your safety. So I think, you know, there are many ways to look at it, but ultimately, you're right, and I think that's what you're getting at with your exhibit, that we as women have to encourage other women and also send the right message to our children, to our young girls and young boys as to what's acceptable.
It's a continuous effort, and you just have to keep at it. And with the theme and this whole show, it's exactly that. It's to put emphasis on it, that there is no need for these labels. Let them go. See us as who we are as individuals and for what we have to offer, because a lot of people have so much to offer. There's so much potential. And like she was saying earlier, you call me a skittle, I want to feel a little bit down about myself. But then really and truly, at the end of the day, if I had someone to speak to me positively and tell me I'm not a skittle, and you know, and just keep on boosting that person, that female especially. And this is why this theme highlights so much, because and I will keep using the word emphasis, because we need to just keep at it.
There has to be a mentorship type of relationship, because I think that's what we're looking at here as well, because if somebody doesn't get that reinforcement, then they feel like it'll be a self-fulfilling prophecy, the things that they hear repeatedly.
I want to just jump off for a minute into talking about the passion that you both have for your art. How was that nourished? Because very often when it comes to visual arts or even writing, those are considered strong points for females, right? But yet, it may be dismissed also as something that girls do. So how did you not only maintain your passion, but actually pursue it as one of the mediums of expression for you, when it could be just a girly thing that somehow you outgrow as you get into womanhood?
You guys just decided you'll stick with it.
Well, for me, I've been drawing and I have been painting from a young child. For me, it was my escape from the daily trauma, the drama, however you want to put it, because each family, there's some dysfunction in each family, no matter how we try to perfect it. And for me, that was my escape. I used to go and I used to draw, or I used to go and paint. And so it was an escape for me. And even as I have grown older, it's still an escape for me, because sometimes your daily routine, your daily activities do get to you. And it's our way of expressing how we feel at that moment. For me, some paintings take a day, or they might take months. But, and you just look at it, and that's our way. Like for me, it's my way of just showing you what I'm feeling at the moment. It's also a career now, and it's something that personally, I have grown to dislike people thinking about it as just a hobby or just a girly thing. It's not just a hobby, and it's not just a girly thing. It's actually a career. And that's something else that we need to work on, like after this show, that we need to take a different look at what art is, because there are so many different categories, but we could be here all day, so I'll go back to what you were asking me, right? I have allowed myself to just keep at it, just keep expressing myself in whichever way. I just want to point out, like for example, there's a new artist that's going to be involved in this show, and when it comes to this particular label, she has made a distorted face because that's how some of us see ourselves, and that might lead to the girly thing because girls react with emotions. So it's how she got a chance to see herself under this label. It's just something that you have to just keep being passionate about. And for me, William, I really don't know anymore how to look at these labels on girly thing. Or I look at it as something that I love, that I just want to continue doing, that if I can help another person learn how to do it, I'm going to be there to teach them how to do it, whether it's a girl or a boy, you know, and it's just an ongoing thing.
I have to be honest and say, I would like to say that, oh yes, you get this wealth of support and you're nurtured and encouraged. But I have to be very honest, it's not there, right? It's not there. And it's not there that deep down in your heart and soul as an artistic and creative person, you would want it to be there. And I was writing poetry and then later on short plays and skits when I was in high school. And I found myself on stage and was winning awards in drama and acting, but then later on, for some reason, I could no longer do that. I went behind the stage and backstage and could no longer really feel comfortable on stage. I don't know why that happened to me, but the moment I left high school, I lost that. But I found my strength in writing. And it's only because it's a passion that I can't explain it. It's something that's in you, right? I say to people all the time that say, you know, Gayla, I don't know how you do that. I got an idea for a playwright, I want to write, or I got an idea for a movie show and I want to write it. So I tell them, write it. Right. A writer writes. A painter has to paint, right? And there is just something in you as an artist that will make you persist. And if you don't do it, then don't call yourself an artist. It bothers me sometimes when people call themselves a writer and they have nothing to show for it. I'm being honest. You know why? It took me so many years, even after I had a little body of work to be proud of, before I dared to call myself a writer out loud. That's how much I revered that label, right, of being called a writer. And so for me, the support isn't always there, not to the level that you would want it, but at the same time, too, you're not discouraged.
It's a passion that you have to.
Yeah, it's not something that's discouraged. And I think sometimes we do as, I always say writing is lonely too. It's one of the, if you do a play, for example, or you write something for TV, many times the director gets interviewed, many times you see that visual work, but you have no idea that there was somebody writing that, maybe up at the wee hours of the morning. Yeah. And you don't know how many times that person was sent back to the drawing board until you get to look at this beautiful movie or you see this play unfold. You don't know. And you also don't know.
The one line may have been that.
Or for a writer, I had to learn this early on, and I'm totally okay with this now. And I learned this to overcome this when I was working on No Matter What. A director, sometimes you might write a scene a certain way, and I have written a scene seriously and have the director turn that into a comedic moment. And I came to learn that's the magic of my art form. That sometimes I am now sometimes inspired even more when I write something and give it to somebody else to direct. And I see how they bring it to life. I find that far more rewarding for me, right? And I have really come to appreciate the magic of collaboration, and that's why I love Women in Art, right? Because it allows, for example, I'm working with a makeup artist, Tanya Tanisha, and I'm working with Tiffany Mosiah. Her dad is Steve Mosiah, the tattoo artist. She's going to be doing some body painting. When I work with people like that, I tell them my vision, but I never try to like, I want to do it exactly like this.
Yeah.
I like to hear how they interpret it. And then I think that's where the magic happens.
Because they're also an artist and
Yes.
an individual, so they need.
They want to create too.
Each of us have our own way of seeing things. So yeah, when you're talking about collaboration, that's like the key.
Well, the ultimate collaboration starts this weekend. Let's talk about the opening night for the Women in Art. It's on Thursday, right? Starting at
7 p.m.
7 p.m.
at the Mexican Institute, the art gallery at the Mexican Institute, and it's an open invitation.
Excellent.
And men and women can come.
Yes,
Everyone is
William.
I'm just messing with you.
And
And
children,
children.
because have tried to make it a family
Yes.
show. That's crucial to be able to talk about. Well, we're definitely looking forward to it. The exhibit continues to run for the rest of the month.
Right.
So people can check it out if they can't make it to the opening that night. Ladies, thank you so much for joining us and having such a great conversation about art, about the role of women in society. And I think your passion shines through for what you do, and we'll be able to see that in the Mexican Institute Art Gallery come Thursday. Thank you. We're going to go ahead and take that final break, and when we come back, we'll have our wrap-up, so stay tuned.